Now, Zamfara State is one of the states that has witnessed a wave of armed banditry in recent times.
The state government is now offering 2 cows for each AK-47 gun surrendered by repentant bandits. This initiative, authorities in Zamfara say, will go a long way in stopping bloody attacks on its villages, whilst encouraging bandits to give up a life of crime and live as responsible citizens.
Joining us now to discuss this via Skype from Abuja is Dr. Kabiru Adamu, Security Risk Management Specialist and Managing Director, Beacon Consulting Limited. It's nice to have you join us this morning, Dr. Adamu. Now, Zamfara State is doing it differently now, offering cows to bandits. This is not the first time that there's an arrangement of a dialogue between the government and bandits. It worked in some part, and then we see this resurgence again. Now, how effective will these cows go in ensuring that these bandits don't drop their guns?
So I think this state-level initiative is a recognition by the state government that there is a socio-economic component to the whole banditry issue in the state. In other words, part of the reasons why the bandits are engaging in what they are doing is because their economic livelihood has been affected. Now, if I can take us back a little bit, some of these Fulani bandits, the cattle rustling that was associated with the initial stages of the crisis has affected their livelihood. They no longer have cattle. All the livestock that they used to have all been stolen, as it were. So I think that is an attempt by the state government to address that core issue around the banditry. Now, whether, for instance, someone who would kidnap a couple of persons and collect millions of naira, whether now if you give him 2 cows, he would accept those 2 cows as replacement for those millions of naira he's used to getting, it's another thing. It is a step in the right direction in terms of the socio-economic aspect of the crisis. But unfortunately, I think there is a lot more that needs to be done if this banditry issue is going to be tackled. The challenge that
all right, Dr. Kabiru, that's before you get to the challenge quickly, some persons have said that as much as there is a socio-economic aspect that the government is looking at, there is also the aspect of justice being seen to be done, especially for those who might have lost properties, loved ones, and the likes to the activities of these persons. What happens when they see this kind of approach to addressing the issue of banditry?
That narrative is really out there. I've listened to some of the communities that have been affected, and they've come up with that. But we also need to take into consideration that there are 2 or 3 levels of government. Just over the weekend, on Friday, Saturday, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management was in Zamfara, and she went with a lot of palliatives. Those palliatives are going to the victims. Of course, is that enough to take care of the concerns of the victims? No. For somebody who has lost his, family, wife, husband, children, and then all you're offering him perhaps is bags of rice or some money, it wouldn't be enough. So I think there is a need for genuine reconciliation where the 2 sides are brought together and the anger that has permeated the society for a very long time is brought out, and then some form of reconciliation is attempted at. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing enough of that currently. So you're right, both sides, from the sides of the perpetrators and the side of the victims. If justice is going to be achieved, then there is a need to find a balance. It's going to be a very difficult task. And frankly, I don't see any state government in Nigeria capable of doing that. There must be a coordinated effort between the state government and the federal government. And in the case of some of the states, including Zamfara, there is a need to also bring in our international neighbors, especially countries surrounding us, Niger, and to an extent, Chad.
All right, Dr. Adamu, what do you make of, because some analysts are saying that there's a link between illicit poorly governed mining of artisanal gold around Zamfara region that has also fueled into banditry. Is there any link between the two activity, the illicit mining of gold and other mineral resources there, and banditry?
That narrative is there. Unfortunately, however, all the research that has been conducted, as far as I know, has not established any link between the banditry and illegal mining. It's out there. A lot of people are putting quote unquote a conspiracy theory forward. But I've seen a report written by a past commissioner of mining and that sector anyway in Zamfara State, where he put forward all the licenses for mining that have been issued, and then gave evidence to support the fact that most of the licenses have not even been activated, and that there seemed to be a class thing for prominent persons in Zamfara to obtain the license, but unfortunately, very few of them have gone forward to actually conduct the mining. He also gave instances of the presence of Chinese miners, some of them brought in by those license owners, and then unfortunately a lot of them illegally. But the bottom line is that he has not been able to find any link between the banditry and then the illegal mining that is going on.
Earlier you talked about this move by the state government being in the right direction, especially with the offer for cows if they drop their weapons. Now, some have said that what happens after those cows perhaps are sold and maybe they run out of a means for a livelihood? Don't you think that they would pick up their weapons again? Because we've seen where government has engaged bandits and perhaps there was some sort of resolution and then again they went back to their activities. My statement is in the right direction. I'm taking it with a pinch of salt. I gave a condition. So for instance, I used the example, someone who is used to kidnapping and over the last 2-3 years he's been conducting kidnapping. He's getting millions of naira as ransom, and then you give him cows. I mean, even if those cows are productive, because the idea of 2 cows is male and female, so that they can produce offspring, and then you can sell the offspring. It becomes an economic venture. Even if that happens, how can we put those cows and whatever productive venture those cows will present to the owner side by side with the ransom he or she is collecting from his kidnapped victims? So it is going to be a very, very difficult thing, and it's just one component of the solution. The big elephant in the room that needs to be tackled is the rule of law, where our criminal justice system is failing to punish offenders. Then there is no amount of socio-economic solution that will put forward that will solve the problem. So that, I think, is what needs to be addressed, and unfortunately, we are not seeing enough of that. Until today, criminality is ongoing in most parts of Nigeria, and it's not being addressed. So putting this economic solution on the one hand without addressing the other core issues, and I'll quickly mention them: the porous borders that is in Zamfara, proliferation of weapons, I've mentioned criminal justice system, climate change, and then, of course, unfortunately, the lack of coordination between the state and federal government. So until all of these things are put together, this socio-economic solution, unfortunately, yes, it's in the right direction, but it can only work if these other aspects are also improved upon.
All right. Dr. Kabir Adamu, thank you very much for talking to us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right. At this step, as some have said, perhaps this is a step in the right direction. Are there challenges that you foresee at the end of the day?
Yes, for an all-sustainable solution to be achieved, all the various components of the issue must be addressed. Yes, the government has realized this is a socio-economic challenge, and so they are putting forward a socio-economic solution. But the issues around the criminal justice system that is failing to prosecute and punish offenders must be arrested. Anyone offends the system in any way. So cattle rustling as an example, kidnapping, which is the core of the issue, rampaging violence where communities rampage. All of those need to be punished. The porous borders that allow weapons proliferation and other things need to be addressed. Corruption around allegation targeted or being carried out by security officials also need to be addressed. Issues around climate change that is causing the crisis between the Fulanis, nomadic Fulanis, and then the farmers also need to be addressed, and several other factors. So until all of these things are brought together as one, unfortunately, I think this solution of exchanging weapons for cows is not likely to bring to an end the banditry in Zamfara State.
All right. The exchange of weapons for cows, certainly the government would have analyzed and assessed how important or how effective that could be and deciding to go along with it. But some analysts are saying that it shows the inadequate capacity of the state as a government to handle these issues headlong, especially when you have so many ungoverned spaces within the state, within the state. What do you say to that when it comes to the capacity of the state to handle this?
So I'll approach that question at two levels. One of them is the ungoverned spaces you've mentioned. It is a fact that those ungoverned spaces belong to the state under our constitution. So whatever the state needs to do to dominate those ungoverned spaces, it should do. Does it have the financial muscle? Does it have the technical capability to dominate this forest? Unfortunately, no. More crude measures, including, for instance, turning those ungoverned spaces into farming spaces or other things, and then encouraging youth to go into farming and things like that, I think is a more a viable solution. The other component of the question is whether the states even understand the process of reconciliation, disarmament, reintegration, and even discussions that would lead, diplomatic discussions that would lead to genuine reconciliation. I do not think, unfortunately, the state has that capacity. Most of this type of discussions is done by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and because foreign relations is in the quote unquote under the ambit of the federal government in Nigeria, the state government don't have those capacities. So I think there needs to be enhanced coordination between the state and federal government to allow this type of discussions and negotiations to succeed. The federal government needs to support the state government in the ongoing reconciliation effort.
All right, Dr. Kabiru Adamu, we'll leave the conversation here now. Thank you so much for speaking with us.
Thank you.